Express.
Hello, welcome to Leading the Way at Leonard's, and I'm your host, Dwayne Knepper. Today, we'll be talking about using tools like EPA SmartWay certification to become a greener transportation services provider, and how trucking companies can create a competitive advantage and stand out as a preferred carrier by reducing harmful emissions. And as always, riding shotgun with me is Leonard's Express CEO Ken Johnson.
Thanks, Dwayne. Good to see you again.
Also joining us is David Powers, Technical Support Manager for Cummins. Improving engine-based products is an important step towards a greener future. David will be sharing some exciting new technologies from Cummins that will help the trucking industry meet our environmental goals. Thanks for joining us, David.
Great to be here.
Ken, set the stage for us by providing some context around the EPA's proposed rules restricting air pollution from motor vehicles, including heavy-duty trucks.
Sure, Dwayne. In March, the EPA published a proposed rule that would set a new, more stringent standards for reduced pollution and reducing emissions, and not just trucks, but across the board. But we're obviously interested in the trucks. If it goes into effect as written, this will impact model year 2027 trucks, which being the end of 2022 sounds like it's a ways off, but they still have to go through the completion of the rulemaking process, and the model years are typically 8 to 12 months ahead of actual calendar years. We're typically starting to receive the next model year vehicles in the spring of the year prior to the model year. So so it's not as much time as it seems. We've been dealing with these EPA restrictions and changes, for it seems like decades now. It's a big challenge for the manufacturers to get the new rules, develop the technology, test the technology before it goes in the impact. It has a we have to live with it as a fleets. Over the years, there's been different technologies that have been put in place for this that have worked well. Many that haven't worked so well, where we've had to deal with mechanical issues. So, it's a big deal every time they put a new rule in place, for the industry to adapt to it.
Absolutely. David, what impact will these new EPA standards have on engine manufacturers like Cummins?
Well, I think it's interesting to know that not just Cummins, but these standards have challenges for all stakeholders, right? It's important for everybody to have input into these, but as we build new engines, we can build engines that comply through engineering and testing like we always have. And there will be traditional as well as new power choices available as well. And then another thing that comes into play for us when you ask for manufacturers like Cummins and even the OEMs, it'll depend on what offerings they do bring to the market from the truck manufacturers. They may choose certain technologies and not choose other technologies. And speaking of that, there have been some recent releases from some OEMs that are already talking about future products before they're even in production. So there's a lot of excitement, again, by all the stakeholders to make this a winning situation for all customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember as a child, tractor trailers, it was a sight to see the billowing smoke that comes out of the smokestacks on trucks. That's obviously not today's glory. But so, Ken, how is the EPA SmartWay program helping transportation and logistics providers like Leonard's Express reduce your carbon footprint?
Well, just a quick side note there to your comment, Dwayne, about the trucks. One of my first jobs working for my dad's company back in the late 70s was washing the trailers during the summer. And back then, the front passenger side corner was always heavily covered in soot and took a while to get clean compared to the rest of the trailer for exactly the reason. You don't see that anymore, or not too often. So, yeah, you're right. Times have certainly changed since, we grew up first in the industry. But anyways, back to the SmartWay program. Leonard has been involved with SmartWay for several years. We look look to that as a tool that helps us, as a company It's a public-private collaboration, with the goal of making the freight industry, more sustainable. There's about 4,000 organizations that participate. It includes shippers, carriers, obviously, as well as logistic partners. The EPA and SmartWay partners like Leonard's Express are working together to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. SmartWay partners save shippers and freight carriers millions of dollars in fuel-related operational costs annually. And I think that's an important piece to this. Not everything that we work towards reducing emissions and in a cleaner environment. Some of it is benefit, not just cost. Obviously the benefit is always there as far as a cleaner environment, but some of the technologies and some of the over the years have wound up costing had a cost to go into effect. The technology costs more, but certainly using less fuel is a great benefit for a carrier, especially in these days with $4 to $5 diesel.
Yeah, is the SmartWay program mandated by the EPA? Like, how much does it cost?
Really the only cost is time. It's not mandated. It's a voluntary thing. And, like I said, we've been doing it for several years. We've had to write software, to calculate some of the numbers that they're looking for. We gotten fairly, good at it, just simply because the number of years we've participated. We use it as a benchmark, for ourselves year in and year out, to see that we're improving. Many of our customers look for that, in their annual bid. They'll put the in the questionnaire that usually accompanies the bids. The customers will ask, whether we're a SmartWay provider. And we're seeing beyond, the SmartWay question, a lot of our customers, being a refrigerated carrier, we deal a lot with customers that are into agricultural and, so on. And, they're very interested in the things that we're doing from an environmental standpoint to, make ourselves a better corporate citizen from that perspective. There's a lot of information, number of miles, number of loads, number of gallons, certainly. And other things, so it does take a little bit of time, but we feel it's well worth the time and on dollars we spend on it. It's a outward facing certification that shows that we're committed to being a environmentally friendly company and trying to be more efficient in that regards. Cummins is also a SmartWay partner, and I'd like to hear from David, his perspective on the program.
Sure. And Ken, what you were saying there, to me, it's really something that a lot of the consumers or general public have no idea about. Some of the efforts that are made by companies like yours to take advantage of these kind of programs to, as you said, it didn't cost anything other than time. But by doing it, you're being more efficient. You're saving fuel. It's a great opportunity, or it's a great example to show there are plenty of things that are available to do, even though everybody's thinking about the future, that we can do today to be more responsible citizens of our ecology and our economy, right? And I think the one thing that really plays into this. Some of the key things, right? You can buy a more aerodynamic truck, you can reduce your idle, you can get easier rolling tires, more efficient route planning. Those are all part of what we call our destination to zero, right? Because we're not going to have a light switch event that's going to change things. And we as a company have a lot of products all over the world, including diesel, natural gas, battery electric, and other alternative platforms, including hydrogen, gasoline, propane, all kinds of different fuels. We have engines in the industrial markets that start up on diesel and then switch over to natural gas that are used in the gas drilling business, right? So we, as a technology company, can make a lot of things, and the engagement from customers that tell us what they need is where we really take our lead on this. And the SmartWay program is definitely a great way to have customers reach goals sooner than just waiting for somebody in a regulation or a policy to say you need to do it by a certain date.
Ken, I think you and David mentioned some of this, but what benefits is Leonard's Express seeing as a certified SmartWay transport partner?
Well, certainly, as I mentioned earlier, the customers, a lot of them require it. They look for that. So we want to make sure that we're able to provide that and meet their requirements. And I think it also it's something that we can share with our employees and in the communities that we operate in, so they understand it's being an environmentally friendly and reducing our emissions and the use of number of gallons of fuel each year is is a priority for us. And it also gives us SmartWay provides some training opportunities and tools so that to help us reach our goals there. So they're a valuable partner in that regard, that we're not just meeting their requirements on our own. They're truly a partner in providing both the tools to measure ourselves, but also giving us some tools to help us improve year in and year out.
Right.
Some of the changes we've made over the years from this, we're always looking for ways to improve our fuel economy. I think a lot of the things that make us better each year, from a SmartWay perspective, we probably would have looked to from or at least several of them, for the simple reason that if we're using less fuel, we're more cost effective company, and and certainly that's a benefit to us. But the way we build our trailers, the way we build our trucks, maybe some of the speed limits, that we set, for our trucks, certainly plays a role in it. Our fuel network, the way we look, David mentioned, running fewer miles. Obviously, you run fewer miles, you use less fuel as well. So we want to make sure we're running the most effective route, which isn't always the shortest, but a lot of times it is. It's we're trying to make sure that we're not wasting fuel by needlessly accumulating miles that we could do something different and eliminate.
David, Cummins has an ambitious strategy for reaching zero emissions by the year 2050, called Planet 2050 Destination 000. Tell us how this factors into the new products Cummins is building.
Well, that's a great lead into the exciting news of what we call Planet 2050 and Destination Zero, right? So there's a lot of goals that have been set by a lot of stakeholders in the whole world, right? Not just in our industry, right? And climate action is not an easy thing to take on. As Ken mentioned, being a SmartWay company, they can make a lot of internal business decisions within their own four walls or within their company that make things work right. We as an engine manufacturer can do stuff within our four walls or within our company that are good, but it takes everybody in the whole world to make this whole Destination Zero work. And based on that, I think new technologies are a great thing. I can't imagine any of us being alive in this year and not having the use of a smartphone for one of the hundreds of purposes that it has, right? So technology is a great thing. But we have lots of customers, as Ken mentioned, that run specific routes, that run specific loads, that go into specific areas, and it's not all the same. We have regional haul, long haul, less than truckloads. We have school buses, we have medium duty trucks, we have all kinds of different applications, and that's just on highway, that some of those technologies will work for and some of them won't. And that's the key thing. And as we get to reducing these carbon polluting type products, we have to use products that make sense, and they have to be sustainable as well. There's no sense in making a product that 5 years from now cannot be supported or something else. So I think the key thing, and a great example of that, and not to choose or any comment about it, I think electric cars are a wonderful thing. Electric propulsion for passenger cars is going to be an easier transition. However, if you want to get to net zero, you have to think about where the products are mined for the lithium and the other products that are in the battery. You have to think about the vehicles that are used for doing that mining. You have to think about all of the 100 well-to-wheel % information that you really need to take into account to get there. And we sometimes miss that with the headlines that are online and in the world today about how things are so much better. But these are the things that we look at as a company, and we have taken the role of not only building engines and generators and the other stuff that we've traditionally done. We've also taken the role of building hydrogen generation plants that create green hydrogen, because today most of the hydrogen that's built in the world is not green, just like electricity and other things. But we're taking the role of helping build these electrolyzers that will create hydrogen for the future and for current customers today that are using it without having a negative greenhouse gas effect.
There's some great points there, David.
Right.
The ideal of the possibility to get to zero emissions is exciting in itself. Obviously, and breathe a lot better, or at least the hope for our children to be able to breathe better. For the guy that creates or that created zero, the joke goes, "Thanks for nothing."
Well,
Anyway, go ahead.
I was just going to comment. David brought up some very good points. I work a lot. I think everyone knows we've talked about it in past episodes. With our state and national trucking associations, and in New York as well as other states, are moving towards some rules on the sale and purchasing of zero emission vehicles and putting schedules in place. And you talk to a lot of these government officials, and they really have tunnel vision on electric, and electric's going to work fine, as David mentioned, and certainly on the passenger car. There's already proof that it works. And certain fleets are able to use electric depending on what they're doing. The fleet that delivers beer, for instance, they can run all electric because they typically are only putting 50 to 100 miles or less on a day and return home every night. But some of the technologies that's currently available, that the governments, and the state agencies are pushing, won't work for fleets like Leonard's, that run irregular routes, don't return home every day, and so educating our elected officials and the government agencies, that you can't paint our industry with one brush, that we all do different things and operate in different ways, and we operate in 48 states and at times other countries, that are building out their infrastructure in different ways. That the solution that works best for Leonard's, maybe being developed, but it may not even be known yet. This technology, I think, is going to develop over time. And companies like Cummins is certainly going to play a huge role in it. But I think over time we have to figure out what's going to work for our company best long term. And so I appreciate the comment on how many different technologies that Cummins is working on, David.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that you just mentioned with talking about legislative or government influence, our CEO, she was recently sitting at a table in Washington, D.C. with President Biden when they had a whole bunch of companies come down and talk about things. And she was there for that exact purpose of what you just said and what we just talked about, that we cannot expect that when we get to 2050, we're going to turn a light switch. So there is a destination, and we cannot expect that every customer and every situation is going to be using the same technology going forward, or even when we get to 2050. So those are key things that we try and help, as you said, try and help our government officials understand what makes sense, but also what technologies are available. And you mentioned the batteries as well and the range. And to your point, you got 150 to 300 miles in a heavy duty truck, but the other thing you have is half of your GCW, or your gross combined weight, will be tied up with hauling the batteries, and you won't be able to haul as much product. Right. And you can't that's not sustainable either, because your customers aren't going to accept that they only get half a load instead of a full load, right?
Right. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. So, Cummins has an amazing video covering the Cummins Planet 2050 Destination Zero strategy. So let's watch that.
This planet, it has taken care of us. Unfortunately, we're not returning the favor.
Some people say that the Earth is very fragile. The Earth is not fragile. It's us who are fragile.
We're not understanding what our impact is, but we're going to feel it.
We need to try to protect and preserve this the most that we can.
The first time you see the Earth from space, it is the most beautiful thing that you ever saw. And you see the atmosphere, it is just a thin veil. It almost gives you the impression that you could just wipe it off. If you did that, all life on Earth would disappear. I flew in space many times, over a span of nearly 2 decades. And I was able to see with my own eyes the changes in the planet.
I grew up in Bangalore, India. Bangalore saw a tremendous economic growth. Sadly, that came with a lot of environmental challenges.
Climate change is the existential crisis of our time. We have got to take action.
Okay.
Destination Zero is our strategy to evolve our company, our products, and our customers' products to a decarbonized world.
I find a lot of similarity between a boulder problem and decarbonization. When I'm climbing, I find that all you can concentrate on is that one problem. You cannot shift your focus.
Our path to zero really has 4 key advantages. It starts today. It drives towards zero and reaches zero by 2050, aligned with our Planet 2050 aspirational goal. It considers the wells to wheels and how we drive that entire chain of emissions to zero. And it considers the economic impact to customers and how do you advance this technology and make sure it can be broadly adopted because it's affordable at the same time.
There may be a little bit of confusion with the customer thinking that it's a step function. You have to immediately go from diesel today, and then tomorrow, hydrogen fuel cells. And that's not the case.
That means we're not going to invest in just one solution. We can put in technologies that we already know how to do into our internal combustion engines that will bring down their carbon impact next year and the year after that. On the other hand, you need to get to the perfect solution too. Destination Zero does both.
It's not about if it's going to happen, it is going to happen, and I absolutely am confident. The when part is where I want to make it happen sooner. I want to leave a world where clean energy is affordable for everybody and it's a basic right.
With our global reach, I feel that we can do anything. Why can't we help save the planet?
We have the drive, and the fact that we have this perspective to shift towards sustainability is what's going to be the big difference.
In many ways, we are all astronauts. And this planet is our spacecraft, the only one we have.
And so when I think of the future, I think of how can we keep going, not when can we stop. And that gives me hope.
So, David, where can folks learn more about Cummins' strategy for reaching zero emissions?
Well, there's a great deal of information on the internet on our website at Cummins.com. You can look at our ESG goals. You can look at our sustainability goals. You can look at different products. All that is available on your any device that can get to the internet, right? I'm in the same boat as Ken, who mentioned earlier with the font size. I like looking at it on a bigger device than a phone, but it can be viewed anywhere. But there is more information about, and we have social media capabilities too, whether it's on LinkedIn or whether it's on all the other different type of social media you can get information on as well. So lots of information is available, and I encourage people to look at that to help educate themselves about a company, whether it's Cummins or another one, as opposed to just reading what the headlines might be in the daily news.
It seems like the possibilities for zero emissions again can be to infinity and beyond. I'm sure we could go in a lot of different directions. Did David, Ken, anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, sure. I think that one of the most important takeaways here, with this conversation today is to be open-minded about where the technology is going to wind up. The technologies we're working on, currently may change over time as they get developed. There's going to be bridge fuels. There's going to be I think diesel's still going to be around for a while, so we have to work both as a company and an industry with our partners like Cummins, to continue to develop the engines so that they're cleaner and operating more efficiently. I think we've done a much better job. I know I've been around long enough, and I know I've dealt with David long enough that we've been through the ups and downs of these regulations, and they've all met the goal of cleaner trucks. The old joke is there's certain jurisdictions we operate in that the air going in is cleaner coming out of the truck, or because of all the changes. But we've also dealt with the downside, that with the lost fuel economy and rush technology to meet regulations sometimes leads to products that just haven't been completely vetted, and puts us in a position of downtime and having to rent trucks and so on. So I think we're better at that now. I think we've learned from a lot of our lessons early on, and actually some of the tools coming down the pike appear to actually not only make the trucks cleaner, but more fuel efficient, and and possibly even lower the maintenance requirements of this. So I'm excited. That my point in this this point in my career, I may be watching some of it from a beach somewhere warm, and talking to my next generation of family members that are getting involved with Leonard's, and seeing how it works for them. But it is exciting to me, to see the change, over the last few decades, to the trucks, and the different things we're doing to make them more efficient and make us more efficient as a company. And we certainly value the partnerships we have with Cummins and some of the other manufacturers that the truck chassis manufacturers and the trailer manufacturers, to make us more efficient as a company.
Right. Well, and Ken, where can viewers learn more about the EPA SmartWay program?
Yeah, EPA, the SmartWay program has a wonderful website. You just put in the SmartWay in your whatever search engine you use, and it'll pop up. And there's all sorts of information on there. Whether it's a company who wants to get involved with SmartWay, for the first time, or just someone from the public that's curious about how it all works and and what the requirements are. It's very well laid out and easy to navigate website. I've popped on there from time to time just to see different things, and been impressed. Certainly, for a government program, it's one of the better ones that we've used.
David, did you want to add any more on here, or?
I would just say, Ken, back to your time on the beach, and I congratulate you on when you get to that point. But I think the 50,000-foot view of your statement there is we all need to be, and when I say all, I'm talking about all human beings. We all need to be environmental stewards, right? And everything that we do, that we can do, right? Whether it's an engine manufacturer, a trucking company, a bunch of kids driving down the road on a Saturday night that throw their trash out the window. I'm just, it's a silly example, but I think everybody can appreciate it. I mean, we all need to be environmental stewards. And as we look at our industry, there's a lot of opportunities, as Ken and we've talked about, and we are here for the long haul, and we want to be part of anybody and everybody's solutions with our products. And I appreciate you having us today.
Good to have you here. And, certainly, I'll make one other point about SmartWay is, we've talked a lot here today about on highway SmartWay, and some of the stuff, we operate buildings, we operate warehouses, we have forklifts, so that all plays a role in it as well. So it's not necessarily just for those that operate trucks. Some of the third-party logistics companies can get involved, just in the way they run their facilities. They can measure some of that as well. So it's a great point, David. And people think about some of these initiatives being expensive, and how do I get involved? But some of them are very simple, and some of them are very cost effective. To help make us a better company. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be spending money, to be an environmentally friendly company. Some of the things you actually save money. So I think that's an important point.
Yeah. I tell you, I used to work on power generators. It was a diesel engine, and I can tell you one thing for sure. Might not be lung friendly either, but it certainly didn't taste good. I was siphoning diesel, got a mouthful of it, tastes awful. So, David and Ken, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having
Your
us.
insight on reducing harmful emissions is so important. We're grateful for everything you're doing to help protect the environment and ensure a better future for all of us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Good to be here.
So that's a wrap for this edition of Leading the Way at Leonard's. If you have questions or feedback, we'd love to hear from you at leadingtheway@leonardsexpress.com. That's leading the way, all one word, at leonardsexpress.com. And please don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to the podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Knepper. Until next time, keep on trucking.
We're running 18 wheels down that open highway. We drive on through the night so you